Hello everyone, I hope you're doing really well in this beautiful time of year. This week's video is kind of a follow-up from last week's video, which was a big autumn books recommendations video. I'm going to be sharing some more autumn book recommendations, but the main difference between this video and that video is that all of the books that I mentioned in this video I haven't read yet. I recently went through my bookshelves to see how many unread books I had, and I'm not somebody who has a huge physical TBR of books on their shelves. I tend to buy books and then read the books I buy, so I always have quite a limited number. However, there were a lot more books in this list than I thought I actually had. And as I was going through the books that I haven't read yet, I realised that a lot of them fit the mood of autumn and this time of year very well. So I thought this autumn, instead of accumulating a lot of new books, I would take the next couple of months to try and read through as many books on this TBR as possible. I have bought, I think, 3 new books for this season, which I'm going to be sharing in next week's video, which will be a book shopping vlog and haul. But the vast majority of the books that I want to actually read over the next 3 months are these books. I keep pointing to that direction. They are here. Most of these books are either books that have been gifted to me and given to me as a present, or books that have been loaned to me, so I kind of need to read them now, and I just realised there's one book on this pile that I haven't added. I'm just gonna go get that. Ugh. Okay, we're back. So as I was saying, most of these books were either gifts or presents, books that were loaned to me, or books that I've bought secondhand from charity shops. What I tend to do when I find books in charity shops is buy them even if I'm not in the mood to read them in that moment, which means that these books do accumulate on my bookshelves a little bit more. When I buy a new book, I buy it to read it, whereas when I buy a secondhand book, I buy it because it's cheap and I know I will want to read it at some point. So that is predominantly what this pile consists of, and I'm just going to go through all of these books with you. As I said, this sort of serves as another kind of autumn book recommendations video because all of these books seem very autumnal in their kind of mood. So if you are looking for some more recommendations, then hopefully this will also be a helpful video for that. So let's start with the classics. The first book that I have on this list is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. My parents gifted me all of the Bronte cloth-bound editions for Christmas last year, and I have still not read any of them. I've tried to read Jane Eyre a couple of times, but I think because I know the story already, I struggle to get into the book. So I thought that I would try one of the other ones instead, and the one that kind of speaks to me at the moment is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I don't know loads about it, but I have heard quite a few people recently say that this is their favourite of the Bronte books and that it's really underrated, and it definitely is the one that I think I've heard the least about. So I'm really going into this one fairly blind. But I kind of want to keep it that way and just experience the story with absolutely no preconceptions other than that people love it. So this is definitely on my autumn reading list this year. The next classic is Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. I need to read this one because I was lent a load of Daphne du Maurier books that I need to give back to the person who lent them to me at some point. So I've been slowly reading through the pile. Daphne du Maurier is my favourite author that I've discovered this year. Her writing is so beautiful and atmospheric and eerie in a sort of beautiful way. So Jamaica Inn is definitely the next one that I want to read, and I also want to go and visit the actual Jamaica Inn. So I'm thinking of doing a reading vlog where I go and visit the Jamaica Inn and also read the book at the same time. So let me know if you'd be interested in that kind of thing. I believe the story follows a young woman whose mother has just died, and she's travelling across Cornwall to go and stay with her aunt and uncle, who I believe live in the Jamaica Inn. When she gets there, she realises that her aunt is a shell of a woman, and there's something a bit sinister perhaps going on, and she gets wrapped up in this mystery that is happening at the inn. It's another gothic tale, and it just sounds the perfect blend of a bit creepy, a bit mysterious, but a very deep character study at the same time. So I'm very excited for this one. We then have North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, which is a book that I picked up in a charity shop years ago when I had watched the BBC miniseries of this book. I loved that miniseries. I must have watched it on repeat about 10 times. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. It's about a woman whose family move to, is it Manchester? Somewhere, a city up north, and she moves, I believe, because her father's a minister, and he disagrees with some of the changes that are being put into place in the church where he's in. So the family is uprooted and moved to the city. Our main character, Margaret, encounters one of the mill owners, and she believes him to be very rude and oppressive to his workers, and she instantly hates this mill owner. And the story is kind of, as far as I'm aware from the miniseries, about the relationship between these two and about the differences between the north and south of England. But this is probably one of the books that has been on my shelf the longest, left unread. So I think it's time to finally read it, and maybe I'll rewatch the miniseries as well. And finally, for the classics, I have these two copies of Agatha Christie books. We have The Labours of Hercules and Parker Pyne Investigates. I feel like this time of year is perfect for her mystery novels. I believe these are both short story collections. I'm pretty sure this is a short story collection following Poirot, and maybe this one is about a different detective, Parker Pyne. I don't know where this one fits within the Poirot series, but I haven't read the Poirot books in order at all. I've read them so out of order, so at this point it doesn't really matter. So I'm hoping to get through some of these short stories as well this autumn. The next set of books on this list are general fiction, so there's some historical, some contemporary, some literary fiction, kind of a bit of a mix here. First one I have here is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I have actually read a good chunk of this book before, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't remember why I gave up reading it. I think I must have picked something else up at the same time, but it was years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, so I've completely forgotten what happened. All I know about the story is that it's about a pandemic in Toronto, and it follows a troupe of Shakespearean actors as they navigate the pandemic. I think this book got a lot more hype when COVID hit. I heard a lot of people read it around that time or avoided it because it was about a pandemic and it freaked people out. And it's also been made into a TV series in the last year or so. So I definitely feel like I need to pick this back up and try it again. I recently read Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney and really enjoyed it. So when I found Normal People in the charity shop, I picked it up because I really want to try and read her other books as well. Kind of along this general theme, I have no idea what this is about. I know, again, it's been made into a BBC show, but other than that, I really don't know what it's about. All I know is that Sally Rooney is very beloved by many people, so I really want to try it. I think a lot of this book takes place in university and around that time period of life, which I feel is a great setting in books in this time of year. I'm also aware that it's not got a happy ending, or maybe has kind of a sad ending, so I'm gonna save this one for a day where I don't mind having a cry. Another book that I picked up in a secondhand bookshop was Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. I've read 3 of Murakami's books now, and all 3 of them I felt were kind of average. I didn't love any of them, but I really like his writing style and the concept he comes up with. And I feel like of all of the books, Kafka on the Shore is one of the ones I've heard talked about the most. This is a magical realism story taking place in Japan, and I've heard it's very weird and very chilling and quite hard to read. So again, I want to try and save this one for a time when I can take it. But I do feel like if I'm going to ever love Haruki Murakami, this book should hopefully do it for me, or it will convince me that this author is just not for me. And then last on the fiction category, we have The Museum of Extraordinary Things by Alice Hoffman. Alice Hoffman is the author of the Practical Magic series, which I know a lot of people love and recommend at this time of year. I haven't read it, but I picked this book up a couple of years ago. I picked this up in a charity shop when we were house hunting, and I read the first chapter or 2 between house hunting, and I loved it. Oh, there's a Instax picture in here. I really loved it, but then I think I just came home, put it down and forgot about it. From memory, it's about a circus around the time of P.T. Barnum and the circus kind of becoming a thing. The main character is the daughter of the man who owns this Museum of Extraordinary Things. I believe she has a condition, but I can't remember what it is, but it ends up making her one of the kind of showpieces of his Museum of Extraordinary Things. And then it also follows a photographer, and the 2 characters meet at some point in the story. I find circuses and the history of the circus really fascinating. So any book about the circus I really enjoy. I remember feeling like the first couple of chapters of this book were so engrossing that I really wanted to read more, so I'm very excited to pick this one up again. So now for the fantasy books. The first one I have here is A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. I started this one a few months ago. We follow 2 main characters, the first being Maggie, who is the daughter of a famous alchemist, and she lives alone in this creaking, old, creepy manor, where she often is alone because her mother is off doing whatever. They have a bit of a tentative relationship. And then the other character is Wes, who really wants to become an alchemist, and so he travels to this house to seek an apprenticeship with the mother. However, the mother is not there, and he finds Maggie instead. In this land there is a mythical fox, and every year I believe they have a big fox hunt. Whoever kills this mythical fox will become famous and rich. So every year people compete to enter this hunt. However, there are different religious beliefs about this fox. Some believe it is a sacred being that should not be messed with, and I believe that Maggie and Wes have brought up on sort of different views on the fox. So I really like the setting and the concept, but there was just something that wasn't gripping me about it from the start. I probably read about 5 or 6 chapters, and just, I don't know, I wasn't fully into it, but I do want to give it another try because it sounds like something that I would enjoy. I would also really like to carry on with the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin. I read the first book in this series. This is a bind-up of the first 4 books. I read the first book, The Wizard of Earthsea, back in March or April, I think, and I felt okay about it. I enjoyed it. I really loved the world and the magic, but the story itself I wasn't that engaged by. However, I've just started the second book, The Tombs of Autumn, I think that's how you pronounce it, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It follows a different main character in a different part of the world, and I believe that the main character from the first book is sort of linked through the whole series somehow. This is a fantasy series that takes place on an archipelago. I believe that's how you say it. Last time I talked about this book, I could not get that word out, but an archipelago, which, if you don't know what that is, because I didn't, it is this sort of layout where you've got lots of little islands, all very close together. This collection of islands is known as Earthsea. The first book follows Ged, who is a goat herd. We follow his life as he discovers more about his magic and becomes an archmage of Earthsea, so kind of grows in fame and status throughout the land. It's one of those classic fantasy series that I've wanted to read for a long time, so I'm excited to carry on with the series. An author that I've really wanted to get into for a long time is Juliette Marillier. I feel like I will really like her books, but I've never really known where to start. And I've had Daughter of the Forest on my bookshelves for so many years. I think I did start reading it. I think I got a good couple hundred pages through. Again, this was so long ago, I can't remember why I stopped reading it. I think I remember finding it quite hard to get through, and quite intense. But I feel like my reading tastes have changed quite a bit since I read this, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And it sounds now like a book that I will enjoy a lot more. I've heard that this is one of the better ones to read to get into her books. And I've also seen that this is a lot of people's favourite Juliette Marillier book. So I think this is where I'm going to start. And finally, we have this beast of a book, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which still has the sticker on from the charity shop. I'm just going to leave that there. It's making a lovely sticky mark on the cover. I read Piranesi, which is Susanna Clarke's other book, last year, and I loved it. It was so good, so unique, and just one of the most chilling and atmospheric books I think I've ever read. So I've really wanted to read Susanna Clarke's first book, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, ever since reading that one. I feel like this is the case with so many of the books that I've mentioned in this video, but it is a BBC series now, and I really want to watch it, but I want to read the book first, otherwise I will never read it. The book is set in the Regency era in England, and it's set in an alternate version of our reality where magic exists in the real world, and we particularly follow two magicians, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I think one of them is kind of an older magician and one of them is an apprentice under the other one. Magic has kind of faded into obscurity in England at this point in the novel, and these magicians want to bring it back, kind of repopularize it. This is a huge book. I think it's just under 1,000 pages. So if I read this one, it's going to be a month-long project. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to get to it, but I really want to read it because I think it will be a book that I love and will feel really accomplished to have read. I've heard that it's weird and just strange, but in a really good way. So we'll see. I would really like to read it and watch the TV show. Let me know if you've read it. Is it worth the 1,000 pages of content? So those are all of the books on my autumn reading list, or my autumn TBR this year. I would love to know what you are planning on reading this autumn. What is the book that you're most excited to read this autumn? Please let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon in the next video.